Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, and as usual, joined by Jason Griffin. Jason, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you?
3 weeks. 3 weeks. The countdown has begun.
To Cedia, right. Yeah, it's, right around the corner. Hard to believe. Year flew by. Another year.
No kidding. Well, this year, I will be joining you out there at Cedia in Dallas.
I'm really glad to hear that.
We're gonna tear Dallas up. But this is gonna be fun this year, I think.
It's gonna be great. Cedia really is. I look forward to it. It's definitely. It's a lot of work, and you're spending a lot of time on your feet, and those trade shows can be exhausting, but definitely one of my favorite events of the year, and I just really enjoy going out there, catching up with old friends, getting kind of re-energized about the industry, and doing some power networking and all that. So really, really looking forward to it. But gosh, just have a hard time believing that it's only 3 weeks away.
It's upon us, yeah. I'm gonna throw a Cedia page up on our website for this year. So like all the stuff that we find, all the booths, and I know you and I are going to be running around, trying to grab audio on the floor like we did, like you did last year. I didn't have to do anything.
It would be good to have some help this year. Divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to double the booths. We're going to double down, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year.
Yep. Well, speaking of Cedia, let's talk about our guest here tonight real quick. Definitely a prominent member of the Cedia community, and that was Mike Maniscalco of Ihiji, remote monitoring and management company, been around since 2009. Man, I was really, when he said that, it caught me off guard. I mean, I knew they'd been around for a while, but just thinking about that, recurring monthly revenue and remote system management are such hot topics in our industry over the last couple of years that it's easy to forget these guys have been at it since 2009, and really probably the early innovators in that space, and really enjoyed having Mike on to talk about Ihiji and their new platform, Service Manager, and thought it was a really interesting conversation. He's definitely got a lot of great insights when it comes to implementing client care plans and RMR into your business. So hopefully our listeners will enjoy that chat.
Yeah, he definitely has a number of tools for what I think the next evolution of what our business will look like. As we move forward into the future, more and more businesses are going to have to focus on service rather than install, because the installation requirements are dropping way down. I mean, we're talking. I was just talking with somebody today about setting up his Sonos system in his house, and he did everything by himself. I mean, it's super easy. Ripped out his receiver, took everything else out, and he's super excited. Has an awesome sounding system, and did it all himself. And that's great. But I mean, where does that leave integrators?
Right,
moving forward.
Right.
So, I think Ihiji, we know them as the network monitoring crowd, but they definitely have some tools that they built into their Service Manager platform that are going to be essential moving forward.
Absolutely. So definitely stay tuned for that. As usual, Seth, we're going to jump into a few news stories here before we get into our interview with Mike Maniscalco. And first one we want to touch on straight out of the gate, huge news. Kscape has announced, Kaleidoscape, if you're not familiar with the name, has announced that they will be closing down. So this definitely kind of rocked the Cedia channel, I'd say, this week. And I know there's it's definitely stirring up some serious conversations and a lot of different interesting angles to this story.
Yeah, like there's not very many people that will buy a $4,000 Blu-ray player. Is that one of the angles?
I suppose that's one of them.
Yeah. I honestly thought this company, they have been around for a long time, and in building a product, I think that everyone wants, but legally can't have. So the Kaleidoscape, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of, it is the premier product for media server, for media, video and audio server, I think. And what they really specialize on initially, we said back in 2009, they were specializing in DVDs and ripping DVDs and putting them onto hard drives, exact bit for bit copies of the DVDs. They moved on to Blu-rays, and all the while being sued by Hollywood, essentially, to stop. And I think in 2014, they finally, no one's buying DVDs anymore, but in 2014, they finally lost the lawsuit on, ripping DVDs. They said, no, can't do that. That's illegal. And I think shortly thereafter, they had some issues, or right before, they had issues with ripping Blu-rays, and you had to basically buy a giant carousel and store all your Blu-rays in this giant carousel. But it would still rip them, but it wouldn't play them off the carousel. The carousel just had to be there to verify that you own the disc.
Yep.
What a mess. I mean, the engineering that they had to get around, that they put into getting around all of these laws, I don't understand. I don't understand how they were in business this long with all the stuff that they had to do. And technically, great product, awesome product, has a great API, has a great interface, like the best interface.
Beautiful interface. Yeah.
But you can have a technically great product and it not be legal. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what they really ran into.
Yeah. I think that, I guess from a broader perspective, the bigger challenge, I think, was the price point. But that, a lot of that, I think, was a result, I should say, of some of the legal troubles they were having, at least indirectly. Lawyers and the engineering to make sure that, the security on the devices was tight. And so there was a lot of factors that contributed to that. But I think ultimately, they would have had a better shot at weathering that storm had they been able to figure out a way to navigate all of that trouble while simultaneously coming out with a lower price point. And I know they were working on that, and they had a couple of systems over the years that they had come out with to try and get that price point down. But, no matter what they did, it was a high-end product. And I know that I did quite a bit of work with Kaleidoscape systems when I was working out in the Los Angeles market. I haven't seen as much of it here, but it's certainly around. There are clearly homes in the Denver market that have it. But it still was very much a high-end solution, so not really a mainstream market product. I think it's slightly ironic that they were fighting all these battles with Hollywood, because I know from experience, having worked out in that market, that a lot of very big name Hollywood, A-listers, producers, directors would use Kaleidoscape in their homes. So just a bit of irony there, but
well, they'll find out that they'll have these really expensive bricks in their homes.
Yeah.
And I wonder what they'll think about that.
Yeah. So anyways, big story, a lot of angles. I'm with you, Seth. I can't say I was shocked by the story at all. I was saddened by it. I think that they fought the good fight. They had a technically great product, beautiful interface, but it just wasn't one that I personally would have put any stock into. So can't say that personally I was surprised.
Yeah. And I will say, over my entire career, I have never sold a media center type thing where you rip discs. Never sold one. And the reason was simple. Like, Kaleidoscape, yes, had the technically superior platform, technically superior product, but it was always questions like, is this actually legal? Do I want to be selling this to my clients? And then having a situation like this where you've sold a $30,000 to $40,000 movie server setup thing to a client, and then have them, turn around a couple of years later and it's not going to work anymore. Once this company goes out of business, I don't think those you're not going to have them working. I know that they moved to a cloud platform just this last year, so they could stream movies in, which was good, but I think it was just too little, too late, unfortunately.
Yep, I agree. Well, let's move on here. We got a few more stories we're going to move through a little bit quicker, and then we'll get into our interview with Ihiji. Next one looks like Samsung is entering the stationary voice control game. So they've got their Amazon Echo competitor that we're now seeing some rumors about. And I think that I again, can't say I'm surprised. This is voice control is a hot category, and it looks like this is kind of early on, maybe a prototype of some sort, and doesn't appear to be a ton of details on it, but it's called the Scoop and looks very similar in terms of the functionality to like an Amazon Echo. So just a small little stationary device you put on a countertop, and presumably always listening, giving you voice control. Part of the SmartThings ecosystem, presumably. Again, not a ton of detail on this. I saw a story on the Next Web is where I'm getting my information, but I think generally just speaks to the interest of large companies in further developing the voice control market.
Yeah, and making really strange choices on their Me Too products. This thing has a leather strap that you can put around your wrist, I guess. and maybe walk around.
That was a little interesting.
Yeah, I don't really get that. Maybe it's like something you can bring down to the beach with you or something. I don't know. It's like it looks like something that would live inside your house, like a little pot or something you'd set on your kitchen counter, but really not sure. Very strange.
Yeah. In and of itself, I'd call it kind of nondescript as far as the physical appearance of it, but the leather strap on the side definitely jumped out at me. I was just wondering what the heck that was, and so interesting choice there. But we'll be curious to see. SmartThings, I think, for all of its challenges, is still a pretty mature platform and probably one that's going to be around for the long haul. I think that's reasonable to assume. And I think that you can incorporate voice control into that ecosystem in a seamless and effective way. Then I think for SmartThings users, that could clearly be a big win. So be curious to see how this develops.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I need to get some kind of new sound effect. We've been running into this with hubs dying off. Like what do I play for that? And I've been playing like the sad slow piano music kind of in the background. But I think I need a new sound effect for routers with mesh Wi-Fi.
I agree. You're going to have to step up your sound effect game over there, Seth.
Yeah, no kidding. So Netgear has come out with something called the Orbi, and it is essentially their version of what we've seen Eero come out with. So that's that it's a router with a Wi-Fi access point, and then you can add on satellite mesh networks to mesh out to bring out your Wi-Fi into those dead spots in your home.
Yep.
Kind of interesting that everybody is jumping on this bandwagon too.
What's old is new again. I know Wi-Fi seems to be a big market right now. Everybody's looking at it, and so Wi-Fi system is the term that Netgear is using to describe it, and it's a small little white box. Actually comes with 2 units when you buy it. Just skimming through here, I don't recall if this article mentioned pricing in
$399.
$399. Okay, so on par with some of the other Wi-Fi solutions that we've seen out there. Looks like they're saying it's capable of covering 4,000 square feet, and they're really encouraging people to place this second, I guess, extender unit, you could call it, out in the open, and telling people you're going to get better coverage that way, which clearly is true. I think that in a lot of homes that may not be an issue, but there are also a number of homes where that's not going to pass the spouse approval test. I don't care how good you make it look. And so that's kind of an interesting aspect of it. I think companies might struggle with a little bit, not for the mainstream consumer, but at the higher end, the mid to higher end of the market. I just don't know. I'm not convinced that people want to have these devices sitting out in the middle of their living room. I think that there will always be a market for the ability to keep these things out of sight.
Yeah, I get why they want to put them out in the open air where it can repeat and have both a strong repeating signal and the ability to get the signal off the first access point. But what I really like about this is that this is the third or maybe fourth system that's come along in this $399 price range of this type. Like this is good. This Wi-Fi is getting good again. If this product at Eero, by all accounts, works really well, I'm sure the Amplify product is going to work well since Ubiquiti is behind it. This has got Netgear behind it. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work if they've done it right. So, and there's no reason to assume that they haven't. But I mean, we've moved on from having the routers that look like giant spiders in your closet to having these nice little flat, modern design looking products throughout your house, and I'm perfectly okay with that. No more spider routers.
Yeah. I'm with you. No, I think it's a cool category. It's just funny. If you asked me a year ago, if Wi-Fi was going to be an area of development this year and an area of movement and new entries into the market, I would have thought you were crazy if you told me that. So just interesting to see it. And obviously Netgear, a big name in Wi-Fi and networking. So again, we'll be interested to see how that one develops. We got one more story here we're going to touch on before we jump into our interview with Mike Maniscalco from Ihiji. And that is a story from Amazon reportedly looking at offering a streaming music service that would be for the Echo only, so for the Echo platform, $5 a month. So Amazon looking into maybe doing something different here in the streaming space. And Seth, I'm curious for your thoughts on this as an Echo user. What do you think? Is this a slam dunk for them, or maybe somewhere in the middle?
I don't know. Limiting the product just to the Echo, I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of them out there, and I know people love them. I like ours. We don't like listening to music through it. We'd rather crank up the Sonos speakers that aren't compatible with anything but themselves, and listen to better music. I mean, I can listen to the Amazon library that I have tied in with Sonos just as easily. I've seen a number of articles saying, oh, they're going after Apple Music, they're going after Spotify with this. But those products like Apple Music and Spotify, you can listen to on many different devices, not just the Echo. So, or,
right.
In Apple's situation, your iPhone, you can listen to it through your Sonos or whatever. And it's the same thing with Spotify. So I don't know. I think it's kind of going to be an uphill battle for them. I think the price point's good. $5 a month. I mean, who could beat that? Ad-free, unlimited access to the whole music library. Not a bad deal if you like listening to music through what's essentially a subpar speaker.
Nobody cares about sound quality, Seth.
Yeah, just like nobody cares about video quality either. Light escape. So,
it's sad.
Yeah.
Some people still do, but it seems to be an increasingly small number. But I think the price point, like you said, could be compelling. I mean, a lot of streaming services that I know of, or at least a couple that jump to mind right away, are double that. So $10 a month. Apple Music, Spotify, I think, are both at that price point. So you're looking about half. I agree. Seems a little bit limited if it is in fact only for Echo. But I suppose there's going to be a market for this, and $5 a month is pretty compelling. It looks like this article is saying that the service may launch in September, so we won't have long to wait in order to confirm if Amazon is in fact going to move forward with this. So yeah, like a lot of our stories here, this will be another interesting one to keep an eye on. But with that, let's move on here. We're going to jump into our interview with Mike from Ihiji here in just a second. But before we do that, want to quickly remind our listeners that if you want to support our show, if you enjoy home tech, get some value or entertainment out of it, we would encourage you to become a patron of the show. And you can learn a little bit more about that at HomeTech.fm/support. And that's a way that you can financially contribute to the show for as little as $1 a month. Help Seth buy some coffee to get through those late night editing sessions. And we really appreciate that support. It goes a long ways to help us keeping this mission moving forward and getting the word out to more people. So big thank you to the listeners who have done that already, and definitely want to encourage more of you to take a minute and go check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to echo my thanks as well for everyone who has supported the show. If you can't do that, just reach out to us and, send us a question. HomeTech.fm/feedback has a nice little feedback form. If anybody does have any questions about anything that we talked about, or home technology in general, just feel free to reach out to us. We're there and on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. You can also find all of the links to everything that we've talked about on the show tonight at HomeTech.fm/show/125. And with that, let's jump into the interview with Mike.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. We, you and I have been going back and forth for quite a while trying to get you on the show. And so I'm really happy that we were finally able to make schedules line up, and really look forward to diving into Ihiji and talking about what you guys have going on these days and moving forward. But before we jump into that, why don't you give our listeners just a bit of a personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your background going back even prior to Ihiji?
Sure. So my name is Mike Maniscalco. I am one of the founders of Ihiji. We started Ihiji back in 2009, and the background before that's kind of interesting. This the Ihiji concept was born within a integration company which we had started prior to Ihiji, and we developed the technology for Ihiji Envision within that business to service our customers. And ultimately, we decided there was actually a product and a business within the Ihiji Envision products. So we sold the integration company, and that was in South Florida. We sold that business, spun out Ihiji into the company it is today, relocated to Austin, and have been focused on Ihiji since then. And I think the going back even before that, before we started the integration company, and our background's a little different for the industry. We had an IT background, started off in research and development for Bell South in what they called their science and technology division, which was focused on emerging technologies 7 to 10 plus years out in the horizon. So early in our careers, both Stuart, one of the co-founders, and I had an opportunity to work at Bell South in this R&D space, and we were focused on home networking technologies. So we got a really good preview into the future of connected devices back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It kind of got us interested in the technology to begin with, but also got us really excited about the future of technology in this industry in particular. We also had backgrounds in software and computer science, computer engineering type backgrounds. So it made a lot of sense when we went down the path of doing a software technology startup, which Ihiji is. So it's an interesting background, but definitely relevant to everything we've done and are continuing to do right now.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally see that. And, we always love having companies on that are born out of integration companies, or at least have integrators at the helm, because I think we really have a pulse on what home technology professionals need. And there's no better way to get that in the trenches knowledge. So, before we jump into any more of the details, I do want to ask also, where did the name come from? I'm sure you guys get that.
Yeah, and I know our I know our PR firm is gonna kick me for saying there really isn't a good name. Yeah, we've had. I mean, I think it's actually fun to tell a story. We've had 5 different stories we've tried to make up to have something really interesting to talk about. And at the end of the day, it really was just, the name sounded great. It was kind of, we had catchy. A list of, catchy, memorable. We can all those classic stories. I like to say now I've named 2 businesses. Both are very hard to remember, hard to tell people what in the world you're saying when you call on the phone. So I could be a consultant on probably how not to name your company. But the great thing is we have a lot of fun with the name, and it is memorable. So awesome. Unfortunately, there's no really killer story.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good. Just in case there's anybody listening, I kind of doubt it, but just in case anybody is listening that's not familiar with Ihiji, let's just start there. Give us the elevator pitch. What is Ihiji?
Yeah, I think the best way to start is just going back to that history. When we were in South Florida, our customers, we were doing very high-end home automation systems, so you had a lot of technology. We were pushing the envelope because we had the strong background in networking. We were pushing the envelope with connectivity and doing all IP-based systems. And our customers would fly in on their private jets on the weekends on a whim, come home, sit down, try to do something with their automation system, try to have a party, and things wouldn't work. And just like all the integrators listening in on this show, you get that frustrated call from the customer, and that it always comes at the worst times. It's a night, holiday, weekend, you're at a family event, and you're having to drop everything for that customer. And we said, you know what, there's a better way to do this. We knew the server space and server IT administration, they had alerting utilities and monitoring utilities, and he said, why doesn't something like this exist for the home, especially with all this complexity? So we developed this tool to actually proactively monitor and service our customers. And within the business, we actually turned that into a service offering, which we sold service contracts to our customers. And this was a cornerstone as that service contract offering. So Ihiji started with our product we call Envision, spun that out, as I mentioned earlier, as a remote monitoring solution. And that was over 7 years ago now. And if you look at what we've done since then, Envision has evolved quite a bit into what I like to call a remote network management platform, where you get a lot more than just monitoring, alerting. You get remote connectivity, remote reboot capabilities. Really trying to be. There's 2 different ways to explain it, and I like this one. Most of the integrators in this company have done universal remote controls, right? And the pitch with a universal remote control is, why do you want 6 different remote controls spread across the coffee table? Because then you're having to reach for 6 different remote controls and remember which is which and which button does what. Your universal remote takes all of that away, and we can program macros, and your life is easier. I like to think of Envision as the same type of tool, only for the dealer's service and support organization. So you don't have to have 6 different remote reboot, remote access, remote troubleshooting utilities. Ihiji is your one-stop shop, single pane of glass for remote service support. So that kind of explains Envision. We also have another product called Ihiji Service Manager, which we launched last year at CEDIA Expo, which is a platform for the business to help deliver on the level of service that they're able to provide with solutions like Ihiji Envision.
Very cool. And I just kind of want to point out, you said 7 years ago, that's 2009. That's before the iPad. I mean, this is completely different time, I guess, when it comes to home networking. You guys have got to been doing this longer than anybody else. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, we were early. What I like to say is we had that R&D product or background. We were thinking very differently. We were early to the party, if you want to put it that way. But because of that, we have deep expertise and knowledge, not only of the industry but the space and the challenges and the evolutions of adoption that dealers go through. And yeah, we learn new things every day, believe it or not, even with all that experience.
So you covered a couple of products that you offer. I know that most of it is software based, like you get onto a web app and kind of look at what's going on in your install sites. But do you offer hardware as well?
Yeah, and the hardware I like to say is a necessary evil.
Right.
Going back, like you said, 7 years ago, there was no iPad. We needed a dedicated device within the home to be able to do the monitoring securely, because we needed something that sat behind the firewall and was able to look at the status of all those devices. So we architected it so that there was a small dedicated purpose appliance on the job site that did the monitoring, but all the configuration, all the access, all the status information was all stored out in the cloud. So we were a cloud solution from the beginning, but the hardware still exists today, because when there are opportunities to embed our software into other devices now that horsepower in devices is a little better. Going back a few years ago, that wasn't even possible. Processing in the everyday consumer electronics device just wasn't strong enough. But having a dedicated purpose appliance on the network just gives you it gives you stability and a lot more flexibility. So we have two hardware components as part of the Envision solution. One is for low budget networks where budget is a concern for the customer, because it's got a very friendly price point for the everyday network. The other piece of hardware is for your pro grade networks. So where you have 10, 20 devices plus high bandwidth applications where you've got 150, 300 meg services, gigabit services. That's what our other hardware component is. The only differentiation is networking capabilities, speeds, and processing capabilities. So those are our two hardware products, but the magic is in the software. We like to think of ourselves as a software company.
Cool. So I'm an installer. I get a Ihiji in a box. What's it look like to install? I just plug it in, and what's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, Ihiji is a pretty powerful network management tool. So it's not plug and play. But we make it as easy as possible, especially given the complexity of a tool like this. So you plug in the appliance to the router. That's really all there is from a site installation perspective. Make sure that the lights come on. And then everything else can be done from the office. So you can go back to the office, you log into your portal. Based on the license key on that appliance, you'll add it to your dashboard. And then it'll scan the network, find all the devices on your network. You can kind of get an idea of what's out there, quick inventory snapshot. And then it'll even start automatically testing things like internet speeds and giving you a plot of the ISP and your download speeds and upload speeds right away. And then you can start adding things like my router, switch, access point, core devices, IP power products, things like that. Takes a few minutes to set up. Once you've got that underway, you'll get alerted if any of those core devices falls offline. I can use it to tunnel into those devices, make configuration changes. I can trigger my reboots at that point. But you can take it obviously a lot further. It's kind of like if you want to think of a Crestron system or AMX system, you buy this little box, and this little black box, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. And we're very similar in that way, and the way you configure and tweak things.
Awesome. Well, yeah, why don't you give us, this is always kind of a hard thing to explain in a podcast, but if you can just give us a quick overview, you alluded to it there in the dashboard, and maybe just talk about what's included in that dashboard, including, some of the business management tools. So multiple sites, multiple team members, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I said, lots of flexibility. But the general concept is a company will log into their dashboard and get a view of all of their client sites. So you're not having to log into each individual client site and check statuses. You have a dashboard. A lot of our dealers actually take that dashboard and put it on a screen in their showroom. And when customers walk through, they can tell their customers all about their services. And they also have all their employees are then walking through and seeing the status of all their systems pretty regularly. So that's a great use of our dashboard. And then the dealer can configure users for their accounts. We've got a lot of different permissions levels and access levels. You can restrict people to single sites. You can restrict remote access. It logs all of that. So what it turns into is a very scalable system for integration companies, because a lot of integration companies have employee turnover. And if an employee leaves and they have remote access to all of your sites, through Envision, you just delete their account and they no longer have access to any of those systems because of our tunneling. It's then disabled. So it's a great solution for companies who rely on VPNs to add a level of security by only sharing VPN credentials with your key employees, and everybody else can use something like Envision to tunnel into sites. So that's kind of the level of flexibility we give with your permissions and users and things like that. There's a lot of adjustments for notifications because we do email notifications, text notifications. You can do that on a user basis. You can do it on groups. You can do once a day emails, real-time emails, a lot of things underneath the hood.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask about that and would love to hear you kind of follow up on it, because I know I've had some minimal experience with Ihiji over the years, and it's something that we're currently evaluating at my day job here in Denver. And so I have dabbled with it a little bit, and I'm fully aware that it's a really powerful platform. And I know one of the things that has come up in my conversations with you and the team is that over the years, you've done a lot of work to really give a high level of customization to the notification settings. And I know a lot of people early on were kind of getting notification overload. And I think that's an interesting conversation. So tell us how that's evolved with Ihiji.
Yeah, I like to start by saying in a perfect network, you shouldn't have problems, right? And that's really where we started with the solution. We said, okay, almost all systems should be perfect. They are hardwired. They have commercial grade networks, commercial grade routing, commercial grade Wi-Fi. Therefore, there shouldn't be, when there are problems on the system and on the network, they should be problems that need to be addressed, because a good network just doesn't have problems, right? So that's where we started. But we all know in reality, in the real world, the situations that integrators get into with budgets and stock, or having to work with the existing product, and nowadays with all of the different Wi-Fi products on the market, perfect networks are a lot harder to come by. So we engineered a lot of different notification adjustments. So there are plenty of ways to do it. You can adjust. Like I said, you can turn up the volume as high as you want, and so a lot of dealers choose to turn the volume way down for every day monitoring, so that they get their once a day status and information. They can look for anomalies at that point and make any determinations of what they need to do that day, and that's all they do. And they don't get any real-time alerts. Some of them turn on real-time alerts for critical clients and critical devices, and they only get those. Some guys go out of their way to engineer perfect networks, and they make the alert levels high because they want to know if there are any problems, because they are network gurus and that passionate about having their networks be rock solid. And then other guys will keep the volume down when things are normal, but if the client's saying, hey, we're having some issues, or they suspect there are issues, they'll turn the volume up a little bit. So there's a lot of flexibility in the system and how you get alerted. And also, for guys who aren't familiar with Ihiji, you can always log all the state changes in history and not be alerted. So I know some people will say, well, we tried it, we got a lot of alerts, but you can turn those email notifications off and just turn them on for the devices you want. So it really comes down to getting fully trained and understand the best ways to approach the problems that you're trying to overcome.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's super important. We're everybody's super busy, and I think the danger in getting too many notifications is pretty obvious, and that's that it'll become noise and you'll stop paying attention. So I think having that ability to go in there and really customize that on a device level or on a project level is super important. And I could tell that was something you guys took seriously, and I think that's a pretty critical piece. So I'm glad you had a chance to tell us about that. Let's just talk in general about the types of devices that Ihiji can monitor. Some of them are pretty obvious, network and control processors, but what are some of the other types of devices that home technology professionals can monitor with Ihiji?
Yeah, I'll say let's start from the outside in. The first is the internet connection, because the ISP, especially in today's cloud services and streaming services, is a bottleneck and a breakdown in a lot of cases. And unfortunately, because we install the networks, we get those phone calls when the internet's not working properly, right? So we monitor the internet connection. We do speed testing, upload, download speeds, latency on the ISP. If the internet connection goes down, we'll log or notify on that. So you've got that level of visibility. Then moving into the house, I like to say core network devices are the first place you're going to look, because if the core network is down, the digital plumbing is down, nothing in the house functions properly. So you want to monitor routers, switches, access points. Then going beyond that is critical system devices, which would include things like IP power products or control system processors or wireless touch panels, things like that. Those are really the important devices. Then it's what devices are prone to having problems and being issues when they do have big issues, when they do have problems. And in a lot of cases, that's things like the Apple TVs, because those, they lock up. And when they do, the customer calls almost immediately. But anything with an IP address can be monitored within Envision. We go through a lot of trouble to monitor the network performance to every one of those IP nodes. And then we can also take that even further and give you deep visibility into a lot of these devices. So a great example is Roku. We can show you what firmware is running, what applications are installed, things like that on the Roku. So you get service information, memory usage information on some devices, processor load on some devices. Firmware is a great one for routers and things that are vulnerable to security breaches because of bad firmware. And we even bridge beyond the IP network. So we've got some special sauce with AMX and Crestron, which allows you to drop a little module onto the processor and monitor Xlink, CrestNet, Infinet, RS-232, anything with two-way with states can be relayed into our system and alerts can be triggered on that. And lastly, this has been a big one for our dealers, our Zigbee nodes behind a Control 4 processor. We can get the status of all Zigbee nodes alerted in an online, offline event of any of those, and even tell you the status of the Zigbee network and let you know if there are problems in the Zigbee network. So we take it well beyond the IP network and get pretty deep into these systems if dealers choose to go that deep. That's a choice of the dealers, because limited visibility in a lot of cases is really valuable to dealers where you don't necessarily have the time to get that deep into monitoring, and that's okay. It's better than nothing.
Right. Yeah. I can tell you the Zigbee thing with Control 4 that's awesome. And then you can get into the network that really isn't, I don't know what I want to say. It's not traditional. So you kind of have to guess at what's going on the Zigbee, a large Zigbee network. There's some interference between device A and device C, and it could be that device B is acting up, but you'd never know just because it's not a visible physical network that you're looking at. So that's awesome that you supply those tools to your dealers.
And when you look at that, I think any RF networks are probably one of the integrators' biggest challenges these days.
Oh yeah.
There's so many variables that are changing constantly that are outside of your control. A lot of competition for communication, and especially in the 2.4 gigahertz space. We see, constant struggles with dealers to tune their RF environments, both in Zigbee, but also Wi-Fi.
Right. So if I'm looking to install or sell an Ihiji appliance to one of my clients, how is the product priced? How does that work? I know that you mentioned service contracts, which implies there's some kind of reoccurring fee that goes on. How as a dealer do I price this out to my client?
Yeah, so we actually don't publish any retail pricing, but we want the price point to be at a point where if you are installing the network and managing the network for the customer, this shouldn't be a difficult sale for you. It should fit very nicely in that network package. So just to give you an idea of where we might start is your everyday network that you install for your customer. This shouldn't be a problem to put this into that proposal from our pricing perspective. We have the hardware price, the one-time hardware fee, and then we have a monthly fee based on how many sites you're monitoring. which gives dealers the ability to seamlessly roll this out and only see price increases as they increase. So they have a bucket of 20 sites they can deploy. We no longer charge based on the number of devices. So from a sales perspective, it's really easy to spec into the project. And what we try to do with our software prices is we want dealers to have margins that are on par with security margins. So the way we see most dealers successfully selling it today is creating what they call a managed network offering, or a networks services plan, and then including Envision as part of that. And again, trying to get that security type margin at a price point to the customer anywhere from $20 a month to $500 plus a month, is what we see dealers do, just depending on the needs of that client, the size of the network, lots of different factors like that.
Very cool. Yeah. I know that, and I've seen some documentation in passing. I know that you actually get out there and actually help your dealers understand how to price out these types of plans. Like your Ihiji has a number of good ideas and documentation and examples, I guess is where I would want to go with that, that you can show dealers interested in the system and actually teach them how to sell these systems into their projects.
Yeah, I mean, we can spend days on the topic of plans and service contracts because we have literally spent years studying this concept. And every business is different, and every business's needs are different. But I think we've come up with some really good formulas and success stories on where dealers can start with very little work, and then how they can grow that over time into something even bigger and better, and the steps they can take to make that a reality. Actually, one of the things we're doing at Cedia is we're calling it a race for recurring revenue, where we are helping dealers generate recurring revenues through some new features within Service Manager, some new services we're offering from a marketing perspective, and then all these templates, just trying to make it even easier. But we work one-on-one with dealers every single day on finding the right way to sell it for their business.
Got it. So you alluded to the fact that every company is different, and obviously there's going to be a lot of different price points. If you're a home technology professional and you're listening to this conversation and you're trying to figure out, okay, how much can I charge a month for recurring revenue, and what can I tie to that? And so Seth alluded to it. I know you guys as a company have done a great job, in my opinion, of putting together resources and really taking that very seriously and helping your clients, I should say, adopt to that. Can you, and it's okay if you don't want to, but can you talk specifically about what are some of the numbers that you're seeing people charge their clients? And then I know one of the big things is figuring out how to differentiate, so you can present to your client sort of here's what you get if you opt into the plan, and here's what you get if you opt out. And you can tie that to different things like equipment discounts and service rates. So can you just talk generally and maybe put a little bit more specifics to how you help home tech pros figure that out?
Yeah, I like to say start small, because if you try to do everything under the sun, because I'm sure everybody listening has explored these topics, but there are guys that say you can create custom playlists for your customers once a year, and you can go in and do annual preventative maintenance checks or quarterly preventative maintenance checks and vacation preparations and tuning of this and calibrations of that and discounted labor and prepaid labor and change your warranties. All of those things are possible. When you start to do that, you're introducing a lot of unnecessary complication to the business, to the sales process, to the customer understanding this. The dealers who have the most success start small. And that's why I mentioned the network services contract, because everybody sells a network with a system these days. And you just include this as part of that. So the price points that we're seeing, and I mentioned the range, $20 to $99 seems to be a really easy price point for your everyday installed systems, right? When you're talking about a $25,000 system, those price points shouldn't be difficult to get from the customer every month for a value add, like network monitoring, remote reboots, remote access and support, priority calling. You're not promising a lot, but you're offering value to the customer. If you're targeting an average price point of $50 a month across those plans, so maybe you have 3 tiers, but your average selling price is about $50 a month, and you're able to sell 10 of those every month over a 4-year period, you generated $600,000 of revenue for your business, which has huge value. So, I mean, it may not seem like a lot of money, but it actually adds up quite a bit over time. So I think those are some really good price points to think about. And then, yes, there's always the story about the guy who sold a $25,000 a year service contract or a $50,000 a year service contract. But those are very special organizations. They're not everyday occurrences. So I think a better way to think about it is, how do I start small? And yet you can always add services into your contracts over the years. We see a lot of dealers change their plans as customers get more comfortable with the concepts, and as their organization gets more comfortable with concepts. You can offer upsell opportunities to your customers.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, we're running a little bit tight on time. We got a little more time, and I just want to make sure we get to it, because I know this is a new initiative for you guys, and it looks pretty interesting. I think there's some unique angles to this, and would love to hear a quick overview of Ihiji Service Manager. You alluded to it a little bit earlier, but talk about how that's different from Envision and what really the problems are that Service Manager is trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, Service Manager has grand visions. And it's going to take us some time to realize those full visions. But we launched it at CEDIA last year as a way for dealers really to support their services business. We look at our industry as it's not a project-driven business anymore, and it's changing every single day, becoming less of a project-based industry, right? It's becoming more about services. And dealers have great tools on pre-sales. Right? They have Slate Plan and other Spring Deck. They have great tools for engineering and specification and D-tools. They have great tools for project management and initial installations. But when it comes to service, they don't have a lot of tools available. So that's what we did with Service Manager when we launched it. We looked at dealers' organizations, and we dove really deeply into some of our dealers' organizations and tried to pinpoint all of the problems that they had with service. And post-installation service, long-term client care service is what we call it. And Service Manager is a platform meant to help their business, deliver premium services. So, like I said, we have a long way to go with it, where we want to be the full documentation solution and be able to just basically run their whole services business off of it. But where we started was where we saw dealers struggling the most, and that was with the recurring revenue component of this. So Service Manager, as it is today, allows dealers to create service plan templates, then sell those templates to their customers. I'll give you a little tease for CEDIA. We're launching a dealer-branded portal for dealers so that they can set up a little portal where they can email their customers and say, hey, we've got service plans available. Go to this website, acmeco.clientcareplans.com, and choose your plan today. And then the customer can look at the plans offered, click the one they're interested in, securely enter their credit card information, and they're up and running. All the dealer at that point is required to do is deliver on the service they just sold. So it will take that credit card information, and also process and invoice their customers every single month for them. So it's a billing solution for their service plans, and remind them when those contracts are up for expiration. And then it also does things like ticketing and client tracking, contact tracking. So we're working with companies like D-Tools. Once the project's sold, you can push the client information into our system. You've got all of your job contacts. You've got the site information. You attach a service plan to it. You sell the service plan. Your recurring revenue just comes in through Service Manager. Money appears in your bank account. It's that simple. And then the other piece we've added into it is dealers wanted a way to now be able to track all the service they're providing, whether it's under warranty or under service plans. They can do that. We've built in a ticketing and help desk system into the tool as well. So it's been a really interesting journey as we worked really closely with dealers to try to help them overcome all these challenges. It really is a purpose-built solution for our industry, and it is a great tool for any business that's interested in selling service plans and recurring services. We have dealers who use it to track all of their warranties. We have dealers who use it to track all their Foresight subscriptions. We have dealers who use it to track all of their Sonic Wall subscriptions. We even had a tent rental company sign up for it, just to give you an idea. But we are focused mainly on the residential custom installation channel today.
Yeah, that's super helpful, because there's not very many tools dedicated to this industry and our particular business models. I mean, I say that because there's many different types of custom installation companies out there. There's the guys that are super focused on security. There's the guys that are super focused on home theater, audio, video, and a lot of times, I mean, I'm hearing you use the word service, but a lot of times the guys are just focused on install and getting wire into homes. So it's really nice to see somebody in the industry and taking part in the industry and really developing tools to help everyone move their business along and take care of some of the challenges that we run into on a day-to-day basis, especially when it comes to service and keeping clients happy moving into the future. I know you mentioned the new portal that'll be at CEDIA, and that'll be cool. Jason and I will both be there, and definitely going to swing by and take a look. What's next for Ihiji? I guess getting ready for CEDIA at this point, right?
Yeah, definitely. CEDIA has been a big focus recently. And these new features are a big part of it. We've always worked really closely with manufacturers to, again, provide that single pane of glass, universal remote type approach. So you're going to see a lot of manufacturer partnership announcements. I think we're on pace at this point to have over 200 different manufacturer devices added into our database since CEDIA of last year, and we've got a lot of additional ones in the queue. So integrating all these devices into our systems so that dealers get better visibility and almost turnkey visibility of these devices is a big focus for us. Improving the user experience is definitely something we want to help with. We realize that, I love your statement of you guys did this before the iPad, because it's true. The first device I ever saw our Envision interface on was a BlackBerry Storm, which is the first BlackBerry touchscreen, if you want to think that way back.
Wow.
So mobile has always been a focus, but at the same time, monitoring was what the initial user interface was designed to do. It's morphed. We've made a lot of changes for usability, but devices now can tell us more information about themselves, so we can help dealers with setup and make it easier to set up. We can help dealers with some really creative ways to tweak these notifications. So those are the types of things we're working on. We can help dealers with the mobile experience. So that's something that you'll definitely see news on in the next couple of weeks. We've got a lot of exciting things happening in Envision with kind of next generation Envision stuff, which you'll probably hear about more after CEDIA. A lot of manufacturer partnerships we're working on, and then constant improvements to Service Manager. I think you mentioned that there aren't a lot of industry tools for things like this, and we really do spend a lot of time listening and working with our dealers to try to deliver tools that make a difference to their business.
Awesome. Well, sounds like you guys got a full plate there, and we're definitely going to keep a close eye on you and see what comes up next. And we look forward to connecting with you out at CEDIA as well. If anyone listening to the show wanted to find out more right away or connect with you for a follow-up question or two, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way is just to give us a call. Ihiji.com is the website. Phone number is right there. We've got the employee directory right there. So give us a call, talk to us. We've got everybody at our company just loves to help dealers with any of the challenges they're having. They're just huge knowledge resources for dealers that we don't charge for any of that. So leverage what we've got available. We're also doing a ton of training at CEDIA Expo, both on CEDIA's behalf and a couple of panels and things like that. So definitely pay attention to our CEDIA calendar, and we're teaching topics on recurring revenue and networking and software integrations and software products. Stop by our booth, talk to us there. Should be plenty of opportunities to talk to us in the near future and the ongoing future.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the time to come on and join us, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.